Hey there, it's the last day of the Disruptive Innovation Festival 2016. The DIF has been a 3-week long exploration of how the economy is changing. 3 weeks and over 300 sessions at the DIF. I've not managed to watch all of them, I bet you've not either, but in this session we're going to have a whistle-stop tour through some of the best sessions of the DIF this year. Hey there, my name's Colin Webster and I'm one of the team involved in putting together the Disruptive Innovation Festival, and joining me in the studio today is a huge number of the DIF team. Yay! Thankfully you can't see most of them, but believe me, they're all here in the studio with me. And joining me for this 1 hour look back through the 3 weeks of the Disruptive Innovation Festival are a couple of very special studio guests. Two members of the DIF team have been really crucial to making the DIF happen. Let me introduce to you Sebastian Edgerton-Reid and Emma Fromberg.
So good to finally make it into the experts chair.
You finally do deserve it though, Seb. Thanks for joining us, guys. What are we going to talk about today?
We'll be sharing the best bits, the highlights, the most exciting moments from the DIF 2016.
Yeah,
That's
headliners, open mics, big top 10s, everything.
We indeed are going to do all of that, and what we're going to do actually, we're going to talk around some of the big themes of the DIF, and there have been 3 themes of the DIF this year: system reset, the future of work, and regenerative cities. We are going to look at the highlights based around those 3 themes, and we're going to kick off with the idea of system reset. And Seb, you picked out the first clip that we're going to look at. Tell us what we're going to see.
So on Wednesday afternoon we had Douglas Rushkoff. It was an absolute belter of a session, our final headline act of the year. And if you don't know who Douglas Rushkoff is, he's most famous for being author of Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus. And he has this sort of, well, he basically asked the question, you know, we had this massive surge in digital capabilities and technological capabilities, and why hasn't it necessarily resulted in prosperity? And he sort of talks a bit about a vision for, you know, maybe how it could enable a different age. Let's just get a clip of him right now.
Let's see Douglas in action.
The real problem here is that we're trying to run a 21st century digital economy on a 13th century printing press era economic operating system. And it's not even an operating system that was designed by people trying to promote the common good. It's an operating system that was designed by a few monarchs back in the 12th century in order to prevent the very economic developments that we want to have happen now. You know, so the first order of business is for all of these young tech developers and people doing all of these digital startups to realize there's an operating system underneath the businesses that they're running. You know, for technology people who are supposed to be able to recognize operating systems, they're, you know, woefully ignorant of the fact that the economic and business rules that they are accepting as given conditions of nature are actually rules that were invented by very specific people at a specific moment in history with really specific agendas.
Okay, that's Douglas Rushkoff, who was one of our headline acts on Wednesday there on the 23rd. And like everything else at the DIF, you can watch back through all of our sessions. We'll tell you a bit more about that later. But Emma, there was one thing in particular you wanted to pick up on about Douglas Rushkoff's session.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting that he talked about Twitter, and Twitter has a revenue of $2 billion every year. But it's not seen as a company that is successful by its shareholders because it's not growing. So it needs to be growing in order to be successful, and I think that's fundamentally wrong. Do you agree?
I could do it being a $2 billion failure.
Seb, people who talk about problems in our economy are kind of 10 a penny, but Rushkoff didn't just reflect on the problems, did he?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who obviously has this amazing sort of historical perspective as well. And I think often, you know, seeing the root and understanding the systemic nature of a problem is a really good way of finding a way towards maybe some solutions. And I think you've even front-loaded us with a nice quote here. We need to optimize our economy, not for the extraction of capital, but rather for the velocity of money. How do we move from a growth-based economy to a flow-based economy?
Yeah, exactly. Like that circulation of value is for me, from my perception, it's like it's the most important part of like for example, the circular economy, that circularity of value instead of only circularity of resources and materials.
And Seb, I know you were particularly keen on Paul Mason, who spoke on the first day of the DIF.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, he's like a quote-making machine, wasn't he, in terms of the sort of nuggets of insight that he was bringing. Actually, there was a massive, I think there was a huge connection between what we saw in that first headline session on Monday night, where we had Paul Mason really talking about the idea that information wants to be free, and the idea that this sort of technological structures that we're developing are sort of in revolt against the social structures, and maybe information sort of changes the way we need to think about the economic system more broadly. I think that had a tremendous connection to what we then saw on Wednesday night, or Wednesday afternoon with Douglas.
And Emma, you had a few reflections on what else you've seen at the DIF around that theme.
Yeah, so we also had an EMF stage with Ken Webster. What was the name again of that EMF stage?
Economic Prosperity Reinvented.
Yeah, exactly. And Ken gave two interesting examples. One about the food assemblies idea. So this is how technology enables the exchange of food in a more local context. And also the Global Village Construction Set, and this is very interesting. This is an organization that provides tools for civilization, and you can build your own village. So this organization sees the world like around us filled with tools, and technology enables us to utilize that.
And Ken, Douglas, Paul, they're all sort of hitting on the same point, right? They're talking about people-centered technologies, this idea of making it more accessible.
Indeed they are. I'm going to move us on now, though. We're going to talk about the second theme in today's show, which is regenerative cities, not system reset. And Emma, you particularly loved an animation by the University of Sheffield.
Yes, yeah, you can already run it. So I have a quote, because it's also voiced over, but we don't hear the voice now. But one of the quotes in the voiceover was, "Regenerative systems require novel design, engineering, management, and learning paradigms." And I really like this because it shows how broad the scope is when you rethink and redesign from a city's point of view.
One thing, I mean, I love this video. It's only like 7 minutes long. It's very accessible, you might say. And it takes that sort of macro view, doesn't it, of the city. So it puts it in context and talks about the hinterland around the city and how the city affects that hinterland. But let's move inside the city to look at our next clip. And we're going to see a clip of Carol from Arup talking about how perhaps we might be designing buildings in the future. Let's see that clip from Carol right now.
So normally you build a house, for example, for longevity, and we developed this house to be taken apart again. Yeah. And this gave us a lot of challenges. For example, if you want to take out materials and you want to reuse them, they cannot be polluted. So we couldn't use glue, concrete, weldings too much. If we have steel constructions, we bolted them together because then they can easily be taken apart. The design is partly also adapted from the availability of materials that came out of other construction sites. So some people look to other construction sites, look to old materials, how can we reuse them? This was something about, okay, if we talk about cradle to cradle, which is one of the principles you can apply for at least have be very careful with the natural resources. If you talk, for example, about storage of energy, how can we do that? So we had to develop a new off-grid model for electricity. Okay. And in this example, also the first completely cradle-to-cradle battery has been applied. There's something about the joints. All the joints have been manufactured in a way that they can be taken apart without screws or whatever. So the whole thing was about rethinking how we normally design, and then try to apply this. And this unlocked a lot of discussions and also some challenges.
Rethinking design, not just buildings, but energy as well. Seb, there was quite a lot about the built environment in the DIF this year. Yeah,
it was. I was just watching that video, and for anyone who's played with the time-lapse feature on their iPhone, you know, that's basically what we're all going for, that stunning video. So I definitely recommend you to catch up on that session, the 21st Century City. And yeah, we had a huge number of sessions looking at this sort of theme of the changes in the built environment, in particular, I think, circular economy in the built environment. So we had one panel on the keys to buildings and circular economy, which was put together by James Ball, a former MacArthur Fellow. Another one called Circular Economy in the Built Environment, which included David Cheshire, author of Building Revolutions, and one actually last night called Design Can Save the World, which went through a whole ream of case studies and examples of little initiatives and innovations in action in the built environment and buildings.
And we streamed a few, we didn't stream them, we showed a few recordings of some events from the Circular Economy European Summit, which was in Barcelona last week, and they had a strong focus on the built environment. And in fact, we showed Ellen MacArthur's keynote speech at that. And just a reminder, Ellen will join us in this session in around about 10 minutes time or so. But let's move from the construction of buildings to moving inside a building. And we've got a nice little clip here, don't we, of how we could use that underutilized assets that we have all around us in our cities. Let's see this clip here. Is a fascinating idea.
We find spaces that are predictably available throughout the city for long windows of time or short windows of time, and we make them available to the people who can use them right now to do the things that they do for building new companies, for hosting meetings, for doing all the things that you need to do when you're in the city. So the first kind of expression of this idea is we partner with restaurants in New York City that are closed for lunch until 5 or 6 p.m. So there's a lot of restaurants in New York City that are dinner-only restaurants. We make their dining rooms available for our customers who come in and use it as a co-working and a meeting space. We equip these spaces with some bare essentials to make sure that they are productive places to do work. We install high-speed Wi-Fi. We provide a self-serve coffee and water station in the space. And we run power cables underneath all the tables so that everybody has a place to plug in behind their desk. So, or behind the table, which is kind of serves as a desk. So that's kind of the basic of what we're doing now, but it really is through the lens of this kind of macro view that says there's all kinds of available spaces in every city, and we think we can connect those with people who can use them in different ways based upon the way that the economy is changing.
And that idea of making use of underutilized assets, of course, something that we at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation explored in a report last year called Growth Within. Emma, you wanted to talk about a little bit more about systems thinking and design around cities.
You saw this all across the DIF, like people that came up with amazing ideas and redesigned stuff from a systems thinking perspective. And I think there were so many interesting, innovative and creative solutions, like from that point of view in the DIF. That was really amazing.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next theme now. The next theme, the third theme of the DIF is the future of work. And we're going to show a clip just now of a session I really enjoyed. I think it was earlier this week, which was called Next for Disruption, Your Job. And in this clip, we look at the automation problem. So a lot of people have talked about how work has been disrupted. So many jobs are going to be taken away from us by the robots. And there's something really fascinating in this video, an idea that I hadn't considered, that robots might take over some care jobs. Let's see a little snippet from a cracking wee video, and then we'll hear Dr. Johan Hoorn, who was the chief researcher on this project, talk about why he thinks even care jobs are under threat from automation.
In 2024 hebben wij 4 keer zoveel 80-jarigen als dat we nu hebben. 3/4 van de mensen van 80 heeft iets waardoor je zorg nodig hebt.
Hallo, ik ben Alice.
Dit is mijn man en dat is Jeroen.
Iets hoger.
Nog hoger.
Knappe man.
We were working from the moral concerns that you couldn't replace empathic tasks by a mechanized doll, right? And by the end of the project, we actually went the other way around. Another moral concern was rising. We cannot take them away anymore from those people. Because it seems that many emotional tasks can be performed by robots, and according to humans, better than humans.
Emma.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you agree with that, Colin? Do you think that they will substitute also the service provided by humans?
Well, for me, it was a big surprise, I guess, that people prefer robots in some cases. And what we didn't see in that little clip was an elderly lady talking about how lonely she is and how that robot in her life has made her feel less lonely. And I suppose that makes sense, right? But one of the arguments, as I said, was made is that the people-centered jobs, the jobs that require that face-to-face interaction, that the caring, was something that perhaps robots couldn't replicate, but Johan was arguing the other way.
Yeah, he thought that robots could substitute that kind of service providing. I think it will be very like useful to have robots for example, when you have elderly that need to be washed. They were quite embarrassed by that, and then robots are a good service provider. But yeah, I'm curious how that will develop further.
I was keen to point out, though, Johan Hoorn, that that whole argument about X% of jobs will be taken by robots is not really that there'll be mass unemployment, but more that we're going to see a displacement of work.
No slight surprise to me that a robot can do a better emotional job than me, for example. But I think that, you know, there are a number of actually speakers during the DIF. We had Michael Randa on a session called Education and the Future of Work, talking about how you're actually seeing a shift in jobs in the marketplace. And actually, to take that idea one step further and to hark back to my two new favourite people, Rushkoff and Mason, they'd probably argue that maybe actually the sort of infatuation, this idea of centralising our economies around jobs and having everyone having a job isn't necessary in the future. And actually maybe it's a shift in mindset around what is considered to be successful or valuable in our economy. Maybe it's a good thing if we don't all have to do jobs all day. I mean, that's not such a horrible future. It's a little bit unknown, but I think there are a lot of different arguments and interesting perspectives on that topic. It's a complicated one, I guess.
Yeah, I was in your top 2 of favourite people.
Top 3.
Top 3. Fine. Emma, you wanted to talk about education.
Yeah, if you look at like robots as a disruptor for healthcare, you can also watch a few videos about how technology will disrupt the educational landscape from Donald Clark, but there is also a very interesting video from Gary Bowles. So definitely a good watch on Catch Up.
Okay, beyond the 3 big themes we looked at, we want to pick up on a couple of other things. Seb, you wanted to talk about open mics.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, obviously if you've been watching the DIF or been a DIF fan for the last 3 years, you'll know this, but to audience members who don't know, every year, as well as orchestrating a lineup of great speakers, we also invite people to join our platform and showcase their innovations, their latest technologies, their latest ideas. And this year we had 150 of these entrepreneurs, designers, thinkers, students, showcasing, well, more than 150 actually, showcasing their latest thinking and getting it out on the platform, getting feedback on it. And while we obviously can't show all of those in this space of time, we did pull out just one clip to give you a taste of what we've had over the last 3 weeks.
Let's pop this one on. This is a really nice clip.
And yeah, to say this is a clip.
Imagine a 20-foot shipping container basically being outfitted to be able to supply all of the needs for a 1 to 2 acre farm. On the roof, we have 3 kilowatts of solar power. That solar power provides the energy to be able to pump the water up from either a ground well system or from municipal lines. We've got some flexibility with where the farm can go, and moves that water evenly throughout the entire 2 acres of the field. Now, one of the important parts, again, is utilizing resources as wisely as we possibly can. So a part of that is not only utilizing clean energy and solar energy, but really making sure that we're using drip irrigation systems.
Yeah, obviously it's been 3 weeks, but I still haven't quite got the hang of introducing something before we put it on. That was Brandy Carley, who is an innovator based in San Francisco, and she's developed this innovation called Farm from a Box, which you've got a little snippet of her describing there.
Okay, Emma, in a way, while you work with us in the team, you are actually part of the intended audience of the Disruptive Innovation Festival. You're young, you're just out of university, you're a designer, and there's a lot of sessions about design at the DIF, and there's one aspect of design.
One. Yeah, service design. There was a really nice open mic about service design. And I picked out this specific clip because if you design, sometimes it's really hard to find the thing that people actually want. And you cannot really ask your potential users very directly. But these guys came up with a solution for that. So
this is good fun, this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's pop this one. That's a proper intro to a clip. Well done.
So what you're trying to find out from people is not the question, what do you want? Because people don't know what they want. I'm an old man. I remember Walkman. Yeah, we were very happy with Walkman. We didn't think we needed 1,000 songs in our pocket until somebody said that we did. But if you had talked to me about Walkman or watched me using my Walkman, you might have seen me getting frustrated with having to carry lots of cassettes around, frustrated with turning things over, frustrated with batteries that ran down and stuff like this. So by observing to me or sharing my experience with me, you might have come onto some ideas. And so it's important, I think, not to ask people, what do you want, but rather, what are you trying to do? What's important to you in life? And by either directly asking them or usually asking around that question, then you can get a lot further. I always use an example of when I was about 8 years old, I wanted to find out if a girl in my class called Tina would kiss me, you know? And I couldn't just go and ask her that, because that would have been an absolute social impossibility when you're 8 years old. So my research question might have been, what will Tina kiss me? But my interview question with Tina was, what kind of music do you like? Yeah. And it's this kind of conversations that you have when you're researching things. You're trying to see what people's goals and motivations are in life. And then when you understand those and what stops them from fulfilling them, then you can generate some great ideas.
So Emma, what type of music do you like?
Different music than you.
All right, I'm going to show one last clip. It's this idea of values, and values came up many, many times during the DIF. It's a very short clip. This is taken from the DIF Live launch, and it's Nikki Silvestri. Here we go.
It's not about technology and digital versus people. It's about our innovation follows our values. Just period.
I was thinking it was going to be, actually. Okay, so that was a real whistle-stop tour through the 3 themes of the DIF and a couple of extra special ones. As always, you can watch all of the events at the DIF at thinkdiff.co until the end of today, which is nearly already over, unless you have yourself a MyDiff account. To get yourself a MyDiff account, you just scroll to the top of the page and click where it says log in. If you log in, and it's free to do this, it takes about 3 seconds to do it too, then you'll have access to all of the material from the DIF for the next 30 days or so. So get yourself a MyDiff account and you can browse through our back catalogue of about 307 sessions? 308 sessions, I'm being told. So get yourself a MyDiff account. Now, the DIF is not just all about communication, really. I would say that lots of communication between us and between the online audience, and also it's about looking at the right cameras at the right time, which I wasn't doing there. What I want to do right now is pass over to Rose, who's going to tell us about some of the communications that have been going on throughout the DIF.
Thanks, Colin. So I've been doing a bit of a roundup of, as Colin said, everything that's been happening at the DIF, and comms-wise, there's been so much interaction going on, which has been great. So I've just picked out a few little things that I just wanted to highlight that I thought were a bit fun. So firstly, my favourite picture probably of the DIF is Douglas Rushkoff showing us his digits, which he's saying these are the original digits, which I just thought was great, and his session was awesome, as the guy said earlier. Next up is Scriberia, who I know we're going to hear from a little bit later from Joe. But they've been rounding up every week with their illustrations and visual summaries of what's been going on at the DIF this year. And I think some of them are just brilliant. And this was one of them for Ken Robinson and Peter Senge's session last week. Next up is Seb's Twitter polls. Now, Seb's done a great job and he's smiling behind the camera with Twitter this year, and I would give you a round of applause, but we don't have time and everyone else has done cool stuff too. So one of the real popular Twitter polls, and definitely one of the closest, was are schools still the future of learning and education? Still up for debate, but it looks like no is leading at the moment with 54%, which is very interesting. Next up is we always love to hear from you and a bit of behind the scenes and what it's like at home watching the DIF. Obviously we sit from here in the studio, but this is a photo taken of one of our speakers just thanking us for her time at the DIF, and that's her setup there, which I thought was really cool. And also, we know we've got great collaborators and influencers at the DIF, and Spark News is one of our collaborators this year, and we had a brilliant session with them earlier today, and they did a lot of tweeting for us, which is great, and I love this one, just promoting their session today. And last up is a couple of our interactographics, as Colin likes to call them. We've had some really great interactions on there so far. This one from Tatiana was speaking about kind of how the basic model of education will be much the same today as a centralised curriculum, teacher-led, subject-based, students arranged by age and ability, but will it be like that in the future? And next up is another one from our very own Sarah, who looks after all of our graphics and branding, is the medical benefits of artificial intelligence could be huge. So thank you for everyone that's interacted with us. That you can still do it, definitely. Just make sure you get yourself an account. That's all from me, so it's back to Colin, the joint second most handsome DIF host.
Thank you very much, Rose. Rose is one of these people who 3 weeks ago couldn't stand the thought of standing in front of a camera, but look at her now, she's a wizard. Right, next up, joining me on the couch is Joe Isles and Ellen MacArthur.
Hello. Thanks for
Ellen, thanks for joining us. You have been around and about throughout the DIF in various different places.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey, actually, as it always is. I think the variation this year, though, has been quite extraordinary internationally, but also subject content. It's been absolutely fascinating. And to see Nikki Silvestri, we just saw that closing comment from her speak, was really quite something. She makes you stop and think, which was really special.
She's good at that, isn't she? Yeah. We're going to come back to some of your highlights of the DIF in just a second. Joe, what do you want to talk about?
Well, I'll try and think of something interesting, Colin, so I won't bore you for the next few minutes. I just wanted to mention Scriberia, which we've got on the screen now, and Rose mentioned briefly, but Scriberia have been live scribing some of the sessions over the 3 weeks. So each week on a Friday, we've been releasing an image like the one you see now of some of the a visual summary of some of the sessions that took place that week. So this is from week 3. We've got urban food systems. I believe that was with Dixon Despommier of talking about vertical farming. Rise of digital technology with Douglas Rushkoff, which we just spoke about. Regenerative cities with Melanie Nutter and Shyam Ramkumar. So covering a bunch of these different sessions, and these are all available on our website, and we've helpfully chopped them up into some of the most choice nuggets for people to save and then share on Twitter or on Facebook. Some of the best quotes that you were mentioning at the start of the session, and some of the most visionary images that people talked about during the sessions are all on these Scriberia graphics. So definitely want to check out. So there's the Interacto graphics if you want to get involved, or these are good to share.
And you say they're on our website, but where exactly would you find them?
So you head to thinkdiff.co, which is probably the site you're on now if you're watching this. And then you check out the news pages, and Rose has chopped them up and added them there, I hope. She's been busy preparing for this, that wizardry presentation that you just mentioned.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Ellen, so I know you were in Barcelona last week, but you've managed to catch some off the DIF. What have you been watching this year at the DIF?
A real mix, I think. I think the one thing I really enjoyed was the 3D ocean farming. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. Actually, it really showed the personal side of someone's endeavour to do things differently, and not just the success of something that works when many people across the world want to try and copy it, but also the perseverance to carry on to do something different when it's not been done before. And the guy who did the presentation, Bryn Smith, he was clearly so passionate what he does. But I found the journey behind what he does as fascinating as what he's doing, through providing a habitat to ocean farm using a very different method, which is kind of suspended in the water. It's not attached in a specific place like traditional farming would be, so that he said specifically he had a lot of his gear wrecked when the hurricanes came in, and this is a way of trying to make a much more resilient system. And although it was specifically about ocean farming, there's so much that ties in with circular economy thinking and resilience, and he talked about restorative and regenerative farming. So I really enjoyed that from the personal side, as well as the him talking about the technology that he's developed as well. And I also, from a kind of food and farming perspective, I found the New Harvest presentation very interesting, talking about how do you grow meat in a lab.
Animal products without animals, the future of food.
That's right. Yeah. And I found that very interesting because it kind of, in some ways, changed my perception. And there was one of the questions came in from the audience saying, so can you imagine eating food grown in a lab? And actually, people's reaction is, it's grown in a lab, why would I want to eat something that's grown in a lab? But actually then they said, well, when you look at how it will be produced once we have this kind of up and running and the technology's there, it won't be in a lab at all. It'll be, in a factory or like a brewery. It won't be that different. So I thought some of the perceptions and the insights in that, it kind of changed my mind. There was a lot of talk about GM and future of food, and it was very, very interesting.
With that one as well, something that was I thought was interesting was that they were really keen to get across that this isn't some big shady thing run in a giant laboratory somewhere underground. It was something, a journey they're just starting out on. Really, we're at the very start of a research and experimentation journey. So it was a great story from that perspective.
Yeah.
And Ellen, Google is one of the partners of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and they were here. I think Joe hosted a session with Jim Miller from Google.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
another one you watched?
I was watching from the other side of the room for part of it, Colin. I saw Jim when he came down for the DIF session as well. I thought that was very interesting, and when Jim opened and actually Joe asked the question, so what is circular economy for Google? How did Google get to this circular economy place? I thought when Jim talked about the server systems and the fact that they wanted to go to the beginning and say, how can we build a server system in an entirely different way? And I loved that kind of, as he said it, you could almost imagine stepping right back and looking at something you've done for many years in a different way. And I think it's a reflective process that so many people go on when they think about circular economy and a lot of disruptive innovation, is you kind of see how the status quo is, and then you step back and you say, how can we do this in a truly different way and be restorative and regenerative and recover the materials and run things on renewable energies, and you have to step back. And that was the same with the food, animal products without animals, and that was the same as the 3D ocean farming. How do you take a step back and look at a system in a very different way? And although the sessions have been so different this year from so many different people in different countries, different backgrounds, talking about different subjects, there have been lots of commonalities I've found, which are really very, very strong.
And I know Ken Robinson was someone you interviewed for the DIF a couple of years ago, and we had him back this year in combination with Peter Senge. First time those two have ever met each other, actually, although it was virtually. What a session you enjoyed?
I loved it. Yeah, I mean, Ken's someone who's inspired millions of people all over the world with his very much common sense approach to how education should be. And there's a line he said in it, which I thought was wonderful, especially in the world of DIF and technology, and you can kind of connect on a phone from most places in the world. And he was saying that in a school, the way that we study is very much mechanical. It's the same way that we studied 100 years ago, is that groups of students come into school and they go through a process. It's not really tailored at all. And he said, in today's world with the capability of IT, surely individual students could have their own program for every day. It could be tailored specifically for them, but that's not really that thinking and that ability is not really translated into education. And Peter Senge talking about people and the value of people and the way that people can teach and they can build confidence within young people and use young people who have strengths in groups to help young people who need more help, and this kind of almost, it seemed like a seamless process to help the entire class understand algebra. I mean, it was really interesting. I found, and the two of them, the chemistry was great. It was very, very strong.
And of course, there were a lot of sessions about education at the DIF this year, probably more than we've had before. And there was a lot of reflection on those points about the way the schooling system needs to change, or rather the education system needs to change. I particularly enjoyed one called Education and the Future of Work. We had Malcolm Nicholson was here. I think he's from Erasmus Education, and he had lots of really sensible ideas about how we should restructure how the curriculum works, how it should not be built around content, but instead built around concepts, which I think is a fair point.
Yeah, very, very strong. Yeah.
And another point around education in general that came out from several people, this whole point about jobs being displaced in some way.
Yeah.
We heard so much about... Sorry?
It was a recurrent theme.
A recurrent theme, yeah.
In many sessions.
But we need to reskill ourselves as adults, keep learning so that we can keep pace with how things are changing.
And Douglas Rushkoff picked up on that as well in his presentation, talking about, will people become kind of irrelevant within the way the economy is developing with the digital technology and the robots, the robots are coming. What does that mean for the future of work and people and employment and the gig economy? It was all interesting because there was that common thread about the value of people, and that was the same within education. Nikki Silvestri talked about people as well. It's not people versus IT and technology. It's actually how the two are able to work together. And I think sometimes the people kind of the last in the conversation, but actually we drive all this stuff. You know, we're absolutely essential to all this stuff, you know, from education or employment.
And finally, you were, of course, present at the live launch. We heard from Nikki Silvestri, from Paul Mason, and Robert Scoble with the VR glasses. What did you make of VR? Is that going to be the next big thing?
I don't know. I mean, I think it goes back to what Nikki said. It's not about people or technology, but it's about how the two work together. And I think, you know, I'd always thought VR, and I'd seen demonstrations at the World Economic Forum where, you know, the guys who got the glasses and how amazing this is. It's amazing. You know, if you go and see this stuff, it's absolutely amazing. But when he was talking about training and the ability to be able to train someone to repair or remanufacture a vehicle, because there you have the glasses and you know, there's arrows showing what you need to do. And I mean, I find that fascinating because it's really there before your eyes. It's very different from kind of thumbing through a textbook with oil on your fingers, trying to learn in a different way. So that made me think quite differently, actually.
I really kind of went back and forth on that during that presentation because he talks about VR basketball. We have basketball. We don't really need to recreate that, maybe.
You play in your house, George. If you're a lonely fella.
Get outside! Yeah. But then the next sentence he was talking about doing something that's completely practical, and when you compare it to maybe watching a YouTube video that tells you how to repair something or reading a textbook, then it does seem like a big leap forward. So yeah, I'm still undecided.
Well, his presentation for me came alive in the Q&A bit when he started talking about how you can use VR and augmented reality in agriculture. And that's when we started to see the practical applications of this technology.
Food at some point.
I think he did.
That's
he was talking
frightening to me.
virtually, no, it was how you could grow, wasn't it? It was advice, it was looking at your farm and giving you advice about when would be the best time to plant, when's the best time to harvest, and so on. So you don't literally eat the virtual food, as far as I understand.
But it's virtually there.
It's virtually there. Jules Hayward's going to join us on the sofa right now. Jules, you're going to jump over here. And there's a reason why Jules is joining us on the sofa. Not because we want to hear her insights. There's not much going on there. But because, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to play the DIF 2016 Final Day Quiz.
Hey!
For which there's a theme tune this year.
It's time for the DIF Quiz with Colin.
There we go then. No expense spared for the DIF 2016 Final Day Quiz. This is how this is going to work. Ellen, Joe and Jules are involved in a head-to-head battle to the end. We're going to play 3 rounds of this quiz. They're just about to pop up on the screen right here. The red ones is what I'm looking for as I click through this. Here it is. We're going to start off with the missing word round. I'm going to put out the title of a DIF session from this year, and you're going to tell me what the missing word might well be. Any
It's
sec-
a new game, have you heard? Let's try and guess the word.
Great. So, the first word, the missing word round, it's this one. What's the missing word, folks? Empowering blank models.
Super.
Empowering supermodels.
Male models, I think.
What was that session all about?
Empowering. Well, that's what I think every time I watch one of your sessions, Colin. We're really giving you the platform to succeed here.
Platform to succeed. Well, Ellen, you got a guess there?
Oh, I'm just trying to work out if the word is as long as a line.
Oh,
you think
maybe
Colin's
not.
been that specific about it?
Oh, Airfix models. No, I don't know.
Airfix would be good. It actually
No, it can't be economic.
not as exciting as
economic
we've been
models.
discussing. Money models, empowering money models. I have to admit that's not an event I've seen yet. But I've got a MyDiff account, so there's time.
You'll catch up on that.
Yeah. Next one. Putting blank to work.
Colin Webster.
The DIF team?
Yeah, interns, I think.
Interns, right? Someone's got
the
it.
interns. Well, they've contributed. They made it work this time,
absolutely.
So it should be that.
Yeah, and lots of people in the audience will have seen people like Molly and Karen working really hard. They are DIF interns this year. Done a tremendous job for that too. Have I missed anyone out on that list? No, I think we're there. It's not interns though. It's putting food waste to work. That's the answer. Next one. Are blank without blank the future of food?
Animals.
Eggs without whites. I think if I could have an egg that was just a yolk.
Just a yolk.
That'd be
Cut out the
great
rubbish.
for me. Yeah. Get to the good stuff.
Yeah, you see, I'm not sure that I like the white
You
of the
like
egg. I do like the white of the egg. The yellow's a bit claggy.
Well, you're not cooking it right. Come on.
If it's runny, it's okay. But when it goes hard, it gets a bit claggy.
There was something to do with animals in this one. I saw it.
Did you cheat by looking this up?
Well, I have been paying some attention to the diff over the last 3 weeks, Colin.
Are burgers without
Meat.
animals the future of food?
Are burgers with animals the future of food? Our survey said animal products without animals the future of food.
I think that's a point there.
Is a point for Ellen?
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Half. Give me a half.
Oh, half a point then.
Half a point for Ellen, 0-0. What is the problem we're trying to solve with
the diff?
This is from The Sound of Music, isn't it? I certainly recognise it from something like that.
With Maria?
Yes. I didn't see Maria this year's diff though, so it can't be that.
Tea and biscuits solves everything. So what's the problem we're trying to solve with tea and biscuits?
Nice.
The answer is everything. Yeah. The real answer is the circular economy, which there's your answer to the question, does Colin match the lines of the words? Obviously not. The challenges of managing...
The diff snack box has been a difficult one to manage. It's been empty quite a few times.
Is that the snack box that you sit next to?
Seb said the fruit bowl has not been empty through the diff.
It's been full. It's been untouched, Ellen.
The snack box is a problem.
The snack box, it's either been too much sweet stuff, too much savoury stuff. We're just getting the balance right now, I think, as we close. There's a packet of crisps in there that I'm going to smash later, to be honest.
We should take notes for next year then, right? The challenges of managing product-based services. Why didn't you guess that? The penultimate one, why insects need...
A pinch of salt.
Tiny clothes.
Oh, that's cruel, Jules. Tiny clothes?
They would need tiny clothes, wouldn't
mini
they?
shoes,
They're not
mini
going to need
shoes.
full-size clothes. Mini shoes, yeah.
Many shoes.
baby shoes,
Oh, quite a lot of pairs of shoes, I would think.
Depends
Why
on the
insects need...
Millipede. It's a lot of shoes.
I know this is one of your favourite sessions, Joe.
I actually did see this one. Why insects need our respect.
Our respect,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I watched this on a train on a Friday night with a beer, showing that you really can join the diff from anywhere, and it was one of my favourite sessions.
Yeah. Wow. That's the lady from Pestival spoke of this. Do you know Pestival? This huge festival celebrating insects. It's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were making a
200,000.
joke there.
No,
but
it really is.
No,
It's
genuine.
massive.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and she was a great guest.
I'm going to watch that one.
You should.
Yeah.
And finally, turning insects.
Into heroes.
I think that's what Pestival does, right? Is it into heroes?
Superstars.
Edible.
Oh, no.
Ellen should write our session
Titles next year.
Yeah, but yeah.
I'll turn them edible. That doesn't seem to be giving them any respect whatsoever, I would say. On to the next round. The next round is...
What's going on here then?
It's the picture round. Right. I took a screenshot from a diff session. What's this screenshot all about? What's the session all about? That's the question here. Fingers on buzzers. What's that?
Oh, is that slime mould?
Slime mould. Yes, Jules. A point for you. Well done.
I thought it was a cabbage.
That's from a session that has superorganisms in the title. Superorganisms. I can't remember the rest of the title. It's one of those really long ones.
Got the keyword though.
Tamsin Woolley Barker.
Ah.
Yeah, this was actually a really great video, about 14 minutes long, looking at superorganisms and how we need to learn from them, like ants, for example. What about this one? Fingers on buzzers. What's going on?
That's
that
the
was a big
title, Colin.
letdown. Fingers on buzzers. What's going on here?
Wi-Fi everywhere.
Internet of Things.
No. Lies.
Wi-Fi at sea.
No.
Aubergine.
Wobbly chocolate rock.
Something to do with food waste.
There's quite a lot of aubergines going on there. This.
That's soil and that's food waste, and this is the Internet of Things in the middle, or telemetry or something.
Well, it's tech certainly in the middle.
Tech.
These are pipes, cables, tech, food, water,
Sky. Oh,
all of which combined you need to look at in order to develop a regenerative city. Regenerative cities dynamic. Jules retains the lead, 1-0.
Oh, right, okay.
Next one. What's going on here?
Oh, buzz.
Glass blowing with bees.
Pestival.
Pestival.
Insects need our respect.
Yes,
I know.
they do.
That's dangerous.
Well, no. What happens here is you can blow in that, and there's these bees in there, and it can tell you if you're pregnant.
Yeah, it can. This guy turns out was pregnant.
Honestly, it can tell you if you've got some illness, or if you're got a bun in the oven.
Exactly. He had a really awkward conversation with his wife when he got home. A bee told me. There it is. Why insects need our respect. It does look like he's a bit
They must
sick,
take
doesn't
some
it?
training. Those bees.
They've 6 years at med school. Right, the final one. It's a tie. You're trailing here, Ellen. You need to get this one, right? Okay. But this is a really easy one for you. What was this session about?
The DIF snack bowl.
This was end of week 2.
Fight for the last packet.
The last muffin.
I know you know what's going on.
I do know
Joe.
what this is, actually. This was a very special session. Can smartphones grow on trees? Chris Foreman, and he released 2 pieces of his open mic entry. This video, which kind of got us thinking about whether smartphones can grow on trees. He's thinking about synthetic biology and subjects like that, and the research that he's doing in that area. Haven't quite figured out necessarily why he does this.
Battle reenactment.
Yeah, and he goes skydiving in it as well.
Yeah. And eats an apple. Plugs into his earphones.
Yes, but it's essential DIF viewing.
I think so.
Yeah,
I loved
It's
it.
the kind of thing where you have to look back before you look forward. That sort of thing, maybe.
Something like that.
Look to the past to create the future.
Maybe so. That's the end of the picture round. On to round 3, the final round. A chance for Ellen and Jules to claw back Joe's lead.
Oh, yes, please.
What's the question?
Would you like a cup of tea, Colin?
I'd love a cup of tea. Joe and Sarah spent all day making these little musical stings. If that's the answer, what's the question? This is a quick fire round, folks. Here comes an answer. Tell me what the question was. Here's number 1. Boom. People sat at home working in their underwear.
What's the future of work?
Well, I work from home. I'm not going to give you any more details than that.
Too much information?
That's not the future of work, Colin. That's now.
You should see what's under his desk. It's not people working from home. It's
is that the one? Is that spacious?
No, it's not. Yeah, this is Douglas Rushkoff. Douglas Rushkoff talked about, he thought the internet was going to be people working at home in their underwear, working for each other, building peer-to-peer economies, but actually he was disappointed that he says it's been taken over by big corporates instead. So that was a memorable quote from that one. What about this one? If this is the answer, what's the question? 20%.
How much?
Colin's hair isn't real.
I think how much has Joe's body weight increased over the past 3 weeks?
Is this a snack box?
Yeah, the snack box.
Is that before after last packet of crisps?
It was 22 or 23% there.
The real answer in this case, actually I've wrongly attributed it to Dr. Johan Hoorn. This is what percentage of jobs will be taken by automation in the next 5 years. And he hates stats like this. He says, why 20%? Why not 19%? Why not 21%? Who comes up with these things? Why not 0?
5 years?
Exactly. Yeah, you'd get on well with him. So that was actually a quote from someone else, and he poo-pooed it, which is fine. We're all about poo-pooing. Next one, a bit more resistant.
I think this is how our production team will feel next time they're asked to do an online festival.
Is that true, folks? Yeah.
Immediate.
Very, very definite
Immediate.
yes.
Yes, that.
The real answer, in this case, it's Tim May, Regen Ag, from Soils and Seas Renewed, where he shared the stage with Bren Smith, who talked a little bit more about his 3D ocean farming. Tim May said the farmers are quite resistant to this idea of switching to regenerative agriculture. That's where that's coming from. Second-hand toilet paper. What's the question, Jules?
What's left at the end of the DIF? Only second-hand toilet. Where does 30% of the value lie in human waste nutrient recovery? In second-hand toilet paper.
Is that true?
I've no idea.
I
sounded believable.
It's all about poo-pooing, Colin.
I think that's a good shot.
I think is this with Eric?
Yeah, remember Karen had her hands all over this second-hand toilet paper?
She did, yeah. So Eric Lockton's from Ecor.
Yeah.
He was asked, what's the weirdest feedstock you've had to make the Ecor boards, which is what the DIF studio is made out of? And he said, oh, funny that, toilet paper, second-hand toilet paper. So he had that example of using the cellulose fibres from sewage in panels. Don't worry, it's not these ones.
The yellow one, maybe the yellow one.
Right, the final quote for this round and for the DIF Quiz 2016 is, there it is there already. A Volkswagen Beetle goes to a nightclub, gets drunk, meets a Star Wars fighter, and they have a love child. What's the question?
What's the plot of the new Star Wars?
That's out soon, isn't it?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
It's a great answer, though, isn't it?
I mean,
you really do want to know what the question is.
I'd love to know who said it, actually. Yeah. That shows some true imagination.
This was a couple of nights ago. A guy called Jonathan Ledgard was in this session here, saving lives and creating jobs with new technologies. Actually, one of my favourite sessions at the DIF. He was talking about drones of the future and drone ports. How can we imagine them? What they're going to look like? This is what he talked about.
Wow.
He wowed us. This is right at the end.
Norman Foster's designed his new drone port as well, or certainly done a kind of a prototype of it. So, yeah, it was that was a good session.
He's adamant that every African city over a certain size, quite a small size actually, is going to have a drone port in it in the next 10 years or so, delivering essential goods and medical supplies and so on to wherever it's needed because of the poor road infrastructure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fascinating session. He's a great guy.
That's one for catch up.
Yeah. That's the end of the DIF Quiz 2016, everyone. Okay, that just gives us enough time in the rest of the show to turn to you, Ellen, and ask you, the Disruptive Innovation Festival, it's been 3 weeks long. We've had 308 sessions from people from all around the world, looking not just at circular economy, but much wider than that. You couldn't have imagined, surely, when you launched the foundation, 6 years ago, that we would have a TV studio here and we'd be broadcasting around the world. What's this all about? What does the DIF mean to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation?
I think that the success of the DIF, and we've got double the number of people watching the DIF this year than last year, which in 12 months I think is quite extraordinary. But I think that the reason for the success of the DIF is that there is a massive thirst out there for people to do things differently, for people to see new opportunities. You know, in the world today, when we have so much access, so much technology, so much ability to kind of find stuff on the internet, I think what's happened with the DIF, or what we've curated with the DIF, is a place where you can come and see loads of cool stuff. And here it is, and it's all laid out, and you can watch, you can dip in, you can dip out, you can, as we all have. We've seen some sessions, we've not seen others, but it's all available. I think it's a reflection of the thirst out there for this kind of material and these kind of conversations. And I think the DIF's different because it is a conversation. The majority of the sessions are conversations. It is about asking questions. It is about feeling like you have a relationship with a person who's sitting on a screen, which isn't quite the same with a just straightforward presentation like the one I did in Barcelona. So I think that it's just that reflection of the, you know, the thirst out there. And you know, at the foundation, we're all about a circular economy, a different economic model, a different way of thinking, and this just illustrates how you can think differently with disruptive innovation. And so many of the, you know, the sessions that we've seen, it's been really exciting. And I feel like I've only kind of scratched 5% of the excitement because I've not seen so many of the sessions.
And there's so many collaborations. We hear little stories, collaborations happening as a result of the DIF. People working with one another, disconnected from us. But also we start working with the companies as a result of the DIF. I think was it Intesa San Paolo who joined in the DIF 1 year and they decided we were an organisation they'd like to work a bit more with.
And are now one of our global partners. Yeah, I think it shows the power of connectivity of the net and the ability for people to kind of dip in, dip out and kind of drink in that content. And it gives people a chance to kind of present what they're doing. And, you know, we always said with the DIF, we want to go out there and we want to try and find those people, those organisations, those companies, however big or small, with different ideas and you know, great creative content and have something important to, you know, to share with so many other people. And I think it it really has been that. We have seen people coming in, big and small. We've had, some of the big corporations that we work with, there's a whole group of people sitting in the canteen watching DIF sessions, throughout the day. Not all day, I'm sure, because they have a job to do as well. But, there's that real kind of, it's small, it's big, it's a bit of everything, and it's really accessible.
And talking about a job to do, our day job is the circular economy. What's happening next for the Ellen MacArthur Foundation? What's coming up in the next few months?
Oh, crikey. Well, the forefront of my mind is the launch of the India project that we've been running, looking at India and the opportunities for a circular economy for India. We've got the World Economic Forum in January, and we're going to be in Brussels just before Christmas. There's a lot going on from a kind of reports perspective. We always have a big push for Christmas, New Year with the World Economic Forum. We've got NPEC 2 coming up, which is the new plastics economy 2, looking at the future of plastics and plastics packaging in particular. And then, of course, all the work that we do, there'll be the next DIF. Looking forward, everybody. But, there's so much going on in education. There's so much going on with our global partners, the C100, and our work across the world. So never has there been more going on than now. We say that every year. We keep doing more and more, but it's great. It's fantastic.
Indeed it is. And thanks very much for joining us on the sofa. And thanks, Joe and Jules, too. And let me just say that the DIF is not just what you see in front of the camera here, people like me sitting here. The DIF is all about actually a huge number of people. And I'm going to invite them to come forward now, just a selection of them, to come up to the front here and say hello to the online audience. So I become Rose. Yeah, and Co. So while a handful of us sit in front of cameras and speak to the online audience, the DIF is actually about a whole number of people who've worked exceptionally hard over these last few months to put everything together. From the people who interview guests, to those who find them, to those who research for them, to those who manage the dull things like spreadsheets, to those who go out and buy snacks, to those who make graphics for the session, to the three guys who've been filming everything and working with the sound. The DIF is about so many people in such a wonderful team working together to make all of this possible. So we just wanted a chance to get them all up here in front of us. In fact, we're not even all here, but a lot of us up here in front of the camera to say thanks so much to everyone at home for watching. And I know Jules wants to say something as well.
Yeah, just very briefly. So this is very much a team effort. It's happened by a lot of, high-performing team, I think, with a lot of fun, play, and some great content being pushed out to a global audience. None of it would have happened if it hadn't had a great individual driving it forward and making sure that all the bits were in the right place at the right time. And it's actually her last year on DIF. So we wanted trees. Phones might not grow on trees, but a money tree might go a little bit to say thank you very much for all your hard work over the years of building up this programme, Becky, and we'll make sure that we fully engage you. You won't be escaping from the DIF, despite your new role at the foundation. Thank you very much.
Norman the dog loves it too. Folks, so we're just going to say a big goodbye, and I think we've got some party poppers to go. So it's goodbye from the DIF team, folks. Bye. Cheerio. Good work, guys.